Okay, the motion for reconsideration, you ask members of the folks who voted a different position from your own on the majority leader issue to step forward and ask for a reconsideration, or the abstaining member, which was Richard Hart, who's newly elected councilman at large, and you got no takers.
Exactly. I was very surprised at that. You know, again, I believe that our council, what's the harm in going for another vote? And at the end of the day, there was not seven, neither one of us got 7 votes. And according to Rule 24C, informal resolutions, you have to have a majority of the vote of the members present. So all that other stuff that we talked about last week, in my mind, didn't even apply to what we needed to do today. And obviously I didn't get that. So the only thing I can think of right now is we wait for a legal opinion. I'm also concerned that future legislations, future ordinances, and things that we pass up here that maybe the majority leader has to sign off on may end up becoming invalid and will end up creating a mess. That would be a problem for the city of Canton. We should do it right the first time. And if I get 4 votes, 3 votes, fine. And we move forward. But as I said, this was never personal for Morris. This was all about process. And I believe when you run a race, you run that race, you know where the finish line is. And if neither person finishes that line or never completes that process, then you don't win the race. Somebody else has to step up and get 7 votes to complete that race.
So when majority leader, in quote marks, because you apparently take exception to that, Morris, when he asked a question tonight at committee meeting or work session, whatever you want to call it, Councilman West, do you consider me to be the majority leader? Do you want to make a forthright statement as to exactly what your position is on?
My position as of today is the only leader that has obtained the necessary votes to move forward was Member Smith in her seat as first vice president.
She got 12 votes.
She got 12 unanimous votes. Morris got 6 votes. I got 5 votes, and there was an abstention. Nobody had 7. And according to Rule 24C, no one completed that. No one abided by that rule. And that rule, out of all the rules, designate the informal resolution that is what we voted on for me or Member Morris to become vice chair.
Is there a thinking on your part of filing a legal action?
No, I think it comes down to, again, going forward, like as I said to you last week, moving on the process. And the process at this point in time is in the law department's hands, trying to get a legal opinion on the matter. And that's all I have to say. I did meet with President Schulman and expressed, my frustration with last week's meeting, because he always processes everything, and he gives you opportunity for remarks, and I didn't believe that happened last week, so that's why I talked with him today, and I do believe he's fair. I do believe he's fair, and I'm not going to take that away from him, but I will say I just felt like I ran against a lot of people in this race, and that's all that goes to
What's the end game in all this? I mean, let's say that ultimately you get the discussion that you want. And my take on your position, as I wrote in my blog today, is that's what you want.
Yes.
You want a discussion. You do want things to move on, but you want an airing of this. But how is Canton Council going to get to a majority leader under your scenario, where it has to be 7 votes? Mm-hmm. If Member Hart continues to abstain, how are we going to get there?
You got 12 members here, and I believe that they did this in the past when they had 10 members. And they worked it out, and they voted several times over, and then they got back together, and then somehow they worked out their differences, and somebody got 7. That's the process, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Is this kind of like we used to do in political conventions, that there would be sometimes hundreds of ballots until a decision was made? You know, I'm not suggesting that would be the case on Canton City, but, you know, just a rough analogy. Is
That's
that the
true.
process that you imagine that Canton Council going through?
Very true, yes. I thought that was the way it works, and it's not a cut and dry thing, and then put in the hands of the president, who's the neutral party. It was supposed to be the neutral party to say, okay, well, look, let's go back to the table, let's go back to the drawing board, let's vote again, let's go in executive session, let's do whatever we have to do to make this, get to 7. And if that even means bringing somebody else up that could get 7, maybe if another council member steps up and they say, okay, we're going to vote for him because we're tired of going through that process. Somebody has to cross the finish line with 7, not 6, not 5, not 4, so on and so forth. But under this rule, 24C, it does indicate of the majority of members present. So that one, in that case, we had 12 members here present. And under that rule, that means we had 7 votes that we had to get, both myself and both Member Morris. And neither one of us obtained the finish line.
Now, there were a couple public speaks people tonight.
Yes.
That wanted to make a race issue out of this. You want to take an opportunity to respond to them?
I'd be glad to. I'd never brought up race. You know, people in the community actually brought it to me and said, well, is there a difference? And I believe somebody said something in reference to 2 African Americans or people from Ward 2 and Ward 4. Believe me when I say this, I represent the city of Canton. I have the passion of the city of Canton in my heart and in my in everything I do. I mean, I represent Ward 2, and Ward 2 isn't African American. Ward 2 is populated more of white than it is black. But at the end of the day, I'm African American, and I support the city of Canton. And so it's not about, and I also believe that we've had 2 Caucasians people there, and I believe 2 African Americans that sit in those seats can also represent this city well. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay.